Welcome back to Inspiredsiren. Today we are doing a speed build mixed with a Let's Talk Books. I originally wasn't planning on making any more than one book into Let's Talk Books, but this book in particular has struck my fancy. And so I decided to do like a 2-part series on the Let's Talk books. And I haven't done a speed build in a while. And so I just decided that I was going to speed build kind of like inspired by these books. And it's not going to be like a replica of anything in the book, but just kind of like an inspired build. So all that to be said, I'll have the speed build playing in the background here, but the book we are talking about today is called Heartless Hunter, and it is by Kristen Ciccarelli. I found this author last year, I think. I read the book Edgewood by them. I don't know if it's a she or a he or they, but I read the book Edgewood by them, and the magic system was really unique. It was really beautiful, and so I immediately started putting these other 2 books on my list, and that would be The Heartless Hunter and Rebel Witch. So I have just completed Heartless Hunter. I do have Rebel Witch from the library right now, so I will be reading that ASAP and then doing the part 2 of this. But Heartless Hunter, I think it qualifies as a young adult. But the story centers around this society where they're witches at some point were in power. And we don't really see that part. All we kind of know is that witches were in power at some point, and then there was a revolution of some sort, and witches lost power, where the queens were killed, and now witches are hunted. So a couple of things about this book that were really interesting. One, the magic system is witches require blood to cast spells. They have to have blood, and then they draw symbols on something, and that's kind of how they cast spells, which I had never read anything like that before, at least not that I remember. But let's be real, my memory is not great, but that felt really unique to me. And the other thing that's about the magic system is unique is that when the witches are needing blood, most of the time they use themselves. And so they'll cut different parts of your arms. By the way, just a quick note, there is going to be spoilers in this, because I'm not going to reveal all the spoilers. I want to leave some for you to discover, but I also want to talk about this book, and so there will be some spoilers. So if you have not read it, here is my review, spoiler free. Book's great, unique magic system, go and read it. And from now on, I am not responsible for the spoilers I give. The second thing I want to note is that I am not your doctor or your therapist or your professional, so there is some sensitive topics here about cutting yourself and blood, and there's some spice in it, so just be mindful of that, and full disclosure that you might want to turn this off if that stuff is going to bother you. So anyway, so when witches specifically draw blood from themselves or from someone else to create a spell, the way that the scar heals, it's it describes it as silvery, and some witches, it's almost like tattoos, where the witches have kind of designed the cutting into their skin in a way that when it heals, they have these silvery marks. It describes one witch having flowers running up her arm, and I think there's another one that describes feathers. So these marks used to be a huge point of pride, because they're just beautiful, right? And they're kind of a mark of a witch. And that, unfortunately, because it is obvious, is how witch hunters are catching witches, is that they're looking for these things that are called casting marks. And so the whole story kind of centers around these characters. So the main character's name is Rune. She is a witch, and she is kind of like, I guess you could say, the female main character. And so she has had a really sad thing happen to her where she was going to be caught and her grandmother was going to be caught, and her grandmother basically forced her, because Rune was young enough that she had not become a witch yet. Her grandmother was like, in order, like, we're gonna get caught no matter what, so either you need to give me up so that you can live, or we're both going to we're gonna die, because like Rune at that point would be a witch sympathizer. So this is like a huge trauma of her backstory for Rune, is that she does, she agrees and she gives up her grandmother, and she has to like stoic face while these people basically are like dragging her grandmother away and then murdering her. And again, this is not a book for kids or for more sensitive people, because like there is kind of a lot of violence in it. I don't think that I think it's on par with a lot of other books in like the fantasy genre, but it might be a little bit much. So that's Rune's story. The other characters are Rune's, what we like kind of know of them as confidants. So there's Verity, who had some other trauma of her sisters being witches and her sisters being murdered. And then Alex, who is like a close friend of Rune's, and is not a witch, but knows that Rune is a witch, and is, I guess, like supportive and like really loyal to Rune. So those are the three kind of like, I guess in the book it kind of makes you at first think about, those are like the three good characters. And then the main character that would be quote unquote like the bad one, I guess, is Gideon, who is this Alex's brother and who is a witch hunter. So the whole story kind of revolves around the story of Gideon hunting down a witch, and Rune is the witch that he's hunting down. After her grandmother is killed, Rune kind of makes it her mission to save other witches. And so she's living in society, and she is not known to be a witch. And the reason that is because, actually, Alex, there's this really powerful scene, how you know you're a witch is when you get your period for the first time, and witches bleed black instead of red menstrual blood. And it describes this really intense scene where, Rune is wealthy and well-known, and she goes to the bathroom and realizes that she's bleeding black, and Alex kind of comes in to help her and sees it, and he doesn't turn her in. He brings her clothes and he runs her a bath, and it's like actually like really tender. I was talking to my friend about how like Alex is like probably like a pretty healthy, like soft, gentle person, and this is one of those scenes where you just see it, where he had a chance to turn Rune in and he doesn't. He chooses to like be really sweet and caring and kind of provide shelter, and that's kind of how their, I guess, trust really starts. So once Rune learns she's a witch, she doesn't use any casting marks. So she doesn't ever use blood except for her period blood. And so she has to save that, and that's how she kind of uses magic to try and help her save these other witches. And it talks throughout the book about how really difficult it is for Rune to do magic, because I guess in the magic system, like using fresh blood and using a lot of blood is the easiest way to do it. And the other thing you can do is you can use someone else's blood. If they give permission, that's okay. If they don't give permission, it can kind of corrupt you. So this is kind of like how the magic system works. So Rune saving these witches is kind of like they leave behind like an imprint that she was there, that she made magic, and her imprint is a crimson moth. And so Gideon, I guess the morally gray main character, he is just forever searching for the crimson moth, and Rune is that one and running from him. And so at some point in the book, they become a little bit more intertwined, and that is because Gideon kidnaps a witch called Seraphina, I think is her name, which Rune's grandmother, also I feel like I'm talking in circles, bro, but like just read this book, it's really good. But Seraphina was one of the witches that was friends with Rune's grandmother, and so she's searching, trying to find her, and Gideon gets to her first. So Rune kind of starts interacting with Gideon, becoming kind of closer because she wants to find out what he's done with the like friend of her grandmother, this witch. And so it kind of goes back and forth between, you know, Gideon kind of assumes maybe Rune is like the witch, but he can't see any of her casting marks because she doesn't have any, and so he's like, well, maybe she's not. And then there's like, he gives her some bad info at one point, and then she follows through, but then Rune is really tricky about getting out of the bad info. And so, you know, it's this like, most of the book is this like cat and mouse, and there is some insane scenes. I think one of my favorite scenes in the whole book is when Gideon kind of traps Rune in this mine, and it's so dark that he can't see who she is, and so he doesn't actually find out that it's her. But there's a scene where he's like chasing her, and Rune finds like, okay, the mine is flooded, the only way is down into the water, and so she like submerges herself, and then kind of flies out and like tries to get away and like attacks Gideon. And almost all of the scenes between Gideon and Rune are like, not even just like, are they falling in love with each other? Because I think, you know, you have both perspectives, and so you can kind of see like Gideon's thinking, oh, like I really like, maybe I really actually love her, and Rune is thinking like, oh, this person is my enemy, he's hunting me, I know he's hunting me, but like I'm getting drawn to him. Of course, like that's the unhealthy relationship dynamic is the one that I was enjoying. But yeah, so the whole book, it's like, in some ways you're like, oh, you're like waiting for them to fall in love, and in other ways you're like waiting for them to catch each other, and you know, for Gideon to turn Rune in, or vice versa, or whatever. And so this is most of the book. Most of the book revolves around this. There's some snippets of some of the other characters. So Verity, who is Rune's, I would guess, best friend, she kind of, the whole book to me seemed a little suspicious, and I was like, is she a witch? Is she not a witch? I'm confused. Is she who she says he is? And like, there's like little parts of Rune's house, like there's a secret casting room where like it describes like books being left open that Rune would never cast those spells, or Verity getting good at whatever. And so she seems loyal, but also I feel like, I don't know, like I don't trust her most of the book. And I think that in the end, that was accurate not to trust her, but that is a spoiler. I'm not gonna give the full spoiler, but I will say I freaking called it. I knew that she was up to no good, and she was up to no good. And if the real Verity is in the room, I don't know about it. So as we're kind of going through this, like, there's a lot of triangles, I guess, and a lot of like relationship stuff. So there's like Rune, and you can tell that Alex is like in love with Rune. It's really funny because Gideon starts falling for Rune, and like, he says something about his brother Alex, and he's like, he's talking to Rune, and he says something like, sorry, my recording stopped for a second. He says something like, but like, Alex got here first. I feel like I'm gonna betray him if I like you. And Rune is like, what do you mean? We're just friends. Like, you can be friends with more than one person. And Gideon's like, are you dumb? Like, he obviously is in love with you. And so I don't know if Rune just like doesn't realize, or like there's a part of her that I don't know, I guess is just so wrapped up in this mission to save witches and her own grief, that she doesn't realize. I mean, that is like a huge thing. Like, everybody's dealing with grief in different ways, right? Like, Gideon is like trying, you know, he's been abused basically by one of the witch queens. And so he, like, his mission in life is to catch witches, because he has this experience where the witches are cruel and like manipulative, and they use him and they try and blackmail him and like hurt his family. I think at some point his sister was killed by a witch, I'm pretty sure. And so like Gideon is like dealing with that trauma, and this is how he's dealing with it. And then you know, Verity's sisters have been killed by witch hunters, and like, so she's dealing with it by like trying to help Rune. And then you know, Alex he's just kind of been almost like ignored or forgotten, and so he's like dealing with his own comparisons to his brother. And you know, Rune is dealing with having to like have basically in her mind caused her grandmother's death. And so every character in the book, their backstories are somehow so easy to understand and extremely deep at the same time, where you feel like you know them and you care about them, and like you get attached to them. And I don't think that's true of every book. I mean, there are some books where I'm like, okay, cool, like I get who this person is, awesome, and then you're kind of like, okay, cool, whatever happens. But like this book, I don't know, the characters just felt so visceral and real, and there was something about it. I thought it was quite beautiful, this book. And so along with just the individual characters and their character stories, you know, at the same time, you've got the relationships, right? Where like, especially, you know, someone like Alex, who he's trying to like love and hold loyalty to two people, and they have opposite missions, right? Like, his brother Gideon is a witch hunter and basically trying to capture Rune, and then he also loves Rune, and he's trying to navigate through that. And I think the same thing for Rune, where she's like maybe a little bit falling for Gideon, and also understands that he is trying to hurt her, and Gideon's own trauma is like basically going to be the death of Rune. And I think the relationships and the dynamics are really interesting, along with like the different types of story. And then all of that is like set in a backdrop of societies. Like, Rune, I think for some reason, I can't remember exactly what it is like a socialite, and so she's like thought of better, and like Gideon and Alex have like less standing. I'm not fully sure how that piece worked, but I could tell that there was differences in perceived worth based on who you were. Let me check my notes really quick. I think most of this was, I mean, I just finished it yesterday, but I read it very quickly. It was a really easy read, and the chapters were pretty short, and so like I really like that. It makes my like ADHD feel like I've got a dopamine hit, because I'm like, oh, I've completed a chapter and it's like a page long. Okay, yeah, so we talked about like brothers, their motivations and their loyalty. So kind of coming to the end of the book, right? Rune is kind of faced with this idea that she is going to get caught if she continues to do this, and she has saved however many witches, we don't really know. But Alex says like, hey, will you come? He asks her to marry her, and he says like, will you come with me like to this other place that I guess is more friendly to witches. And like be happy, like live as we like both are, like understanding who we are. Kind of Alex wants to study and he wants Rune to just like have a peaceful life, and Rune kind of has to go back and forth between like, okay, but like my grandmother died because of me, and you know, Rune has like this huge self-loathing problem because of the way that her grandmother was like killed. And I think we all know like situations like that where something is not our fault, but it is so painful to watch or see or experience that it's hard to let go of. And Rune is like navigating, okay, like what would it mean if I am allowing myself to be happy? Like what would it mean if I allow myself to go to, that's my cat if you can hear her crying. Okay, sorry. My cat was crying. I think she maybe is lonely. Anyways, so Rune's kind of going back and forth between, okay, can I be happy, or like does that feel like it's betraying myself and my grandmother? And she goes back and forth and she decides, yes, like I'm gonna be happy, right? And so her and Alex have made the decision, and right at the end of the book, like they're gonna try and get to Serafina, and then they're gonna leave the island, they're gonna escape. There's like a plan in place, and all of a sudden things start unraveling, right? Like Rune decides that she needs to tell Gideon and like be honest about like deciding to choose his brother and moving away. And then Verity is exposed. Verity, I don't know how I feel about her, but anyway, she's exposed, and like Rune starts understanding she isn't who she said she was, and she kind of goes to tell Gideon this, and then somehow Gideon has found out, like I think he overheard them talking, and he's found out that she's a witch, and so he arrests her, and he's going to take her to what's called the purging, which is going to be Rune and Serafina. And then actually Alex admits to like knowing that and being a witch sympathizer, so it's going to be all three of them. And so the very last scene in the book is just them going to this purging, and then all freaking hell breaks loose, and there is like a witch revolution, and all these witches come in that are unexpected, and Rune is in a very sad way. I'm not going to ruin this, but someone dies, and it's really sad, and then Rune uses their blood to kind of cast a spell to help them escape. And it's like kind of a cliffhanger. I'm really glad that I am reading this when the next book is already out and I have it from the library, because I can't imagine reading this book and then you're like, oh wait, now I have to wait. So yeah, that's kind of how it ends, right? Like where there's going to be some sort of a new revolution, and Rune is like facing this grief and trying to understand what's happening, and everybody in my cat has a lot to say right now. Everybody in the end is kind of like left on a hook. Like we don't know who's going to be in power. We don't know if it's going to be okay to be a witch. We don't know what happens to Gideon. Like it's like it just kind of, it's like it goes dark. So that's kind of the end of the book. I think that's all I have to say about it. I will say I really enjoyed it. I felt like it was very unique and interesting, and this is definitely one that will get you out of a reading slump, I think, because it's pretty fast paced. It's I'm also like a happy book reader, I would say, where I don't usually see like plot holes or like bad writing. I usually just think most books are kind of good. But I will say I think that this one is probably my favorite read of the year. So if you are interested, I would definitely recommend checking out Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. Okay, I just wanted to jump here. We are complete with the part 1 of our Heartless Hunter Rebel Witch series, and we have got the outside of the house complete. So this is I don't know, in my head what I was kind of maybe imagining Rune's house to be like. Upstairs we've got I'm imagining like being her secret casting room. We've got the secret bookshelf door here, off of, her bedroom. We might work a little with the layout here, but we've got all that side, we've got this side, and then we've got some big spaces downstairs. So that is going to be it for the part 1 build. I already love how it's coming together. I think it's I do love it at night, but I think the morning is just like my favorite view of this house. So stay tuned. Part 2 will be coming out soon. And we're going to work through the interior in a speed build. So thank you for jumping in and watching and listening to me talk about the amazing book, Heartless Hunter. And I can't wait to jump in next time and talk about the duology sequel, Rebel Witch. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. It will make my day. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.